I'm going to start the show today with the former Vice President, Mike Pence. Go, Mike.
Hey, everybody. Mike Pence here. Remember $2 a gallon gas?
Yes.
I do. And then Joe Biden became president of the United States and launched his...
All right, we'll come back to the former vice president, now presidential candidate. He doesn't remember gas prices, folks. Spoiler alert there. It's probably going to be the last story I cover, but he doesn't have any idea what gas prices are, unless it was given to him in a memo. We'll get to that. Anyway, welcome to GAMcast for August 11th, 2023. It is a exceedingly slow news day, so normally that would mean I have a lot of things to talk about, but I've got to get a bunch of things out the door. Really busy, going to be... got a couple of things I got coming up Monday and Tuesday, and then I'm taking a vacay thereafter. So need to get to some other things, but not to worry, because it's a slow news day. I think I can get it done pretty quickly. So let's revisit where we are here. This is a story that's not being covered and should be being covered. But it came out really soon. Well, let's listen to James O'Keefe from Project... Well, he's not from Project Veritas anymore because he got Me Too'd. He got shut down. He got canceled. I forget what I think it's OMG or something now. Anyway, here he is talking about Best Buy.
I'm James O'Keefe with OMG, standing outside Best Buy. This week on August 8th, O'Keefe Media Group OMG released a story featuring a whistleblower from inside Best Buy that released screenshots of a training program, a management training program with McKinsey & Company, where it explicitly excludes white applicants. The program's racial requirements have led to accusations of racial discrimination. A firestorm online. The CEO of Best Buy, Corey Berry, has now made her Twitter account private.
Anyway, folks, basically what's going on is that's called racism. That's called a violation of the Civil Rights Act of 1964. I mean, it's open and shut. This has been ruled on by the court not once, not twice, not thrice, 1,000 million times. Right? Sometimes it's called reverse racism. That was kind of the thing to say back in the day. And then they tried to beat it back. Believe me, they did. When it first came up, I was like, what? It's either racism or not racism. The Civil Rights Act says you can't discriminate based on race, gender, national origin, religion, right? There are these categories. It doesn't say race unless you're white, or it doesn't say you can't discriminate against these races. They could have. They could have done that. They didn't. And again, just so you understand, back in the 60s, nobody, well, not nobody, but most people, it was almost uniform. Even Dr. King, Lyndon B. Johnson, all these people were like, yeah, we need to have an equal playing field. So let's just get rid of the racism. Let's get rid of the de jure racism, right? And de jure just means by law. Make it legally so that everybody is equal. And for a while there, people accepted that. And then you started to get the pushback, probably late 70s, early 80s. And, well, brown people, minorities, persons of color, they by definition, they can't be racist because they don't have any power. Well, that's not exactly true. There are black companies, and there are black politicians, and there are black people and all sorts of things. So, they have power, so they can, even under your own logic, it doesn't make any sense. But then you start to see you're pushing back at the idea that, well, are you saying that it's okay to discriminate against white persons? Well, they weren't quite there yet. Now they are openly there. They've been there for a while. And this got to the Barack Obama situation. And just think about this. As they've gained power, they've gotten more racist. Now, how does that make any sense if even under their own logic, right, racism comes from the power structure? It doesn't make any sense. And the reason I put this story as the first story in is that you have to understand, if you are getting your news from other places, and I'm gonna rip on some quote unquote conservatives later too, so don't worry. But a lot of the news industry, and it's not just the mainstream media and the alphabet networks and the traditional legacy media, whatever we want to call them. It's also some of the other media out there. You have to be careful and know what you're looking at. But this story's not out there if you don't know where to look, if you don't have feeds that will bring you in and show you news like that. And so you don't know this is going on. But folks, let me tell you something. If Best Buy's doing it, you best believe just about every place out there is doing it. And again, why on earth would you need to do this? Why wouldn't you just make it available to everybody, right? Now, their point is, well, these people aren't doing as well, so we got to go out of our way to help them, right? Okay, so you go out of their way by giving them opportunities other people don't get. And what is the basis of that? Why are they not succeeding? Anyway, at this point, folks, we just have to, it is what it is. See it for what it is. They just don't believe what we believe. We believe that the law should be colorblind. We understand that in the past it was not. It will be going forward. And they don't. It's just that simple. They believe in a power dynamic, and it's not a coincidence that is the Democrat Party, the party of slavery, that is doing this. They've always believed that. And again, I don't know how much I'm going to get into it today, but we're going to get into later today some of the conversations. I mean, at this point, the Democrat Party, the Biden crime machine, it's literally like a mafia family. I mean, think about it. I thought about this. I had to go run an errand this morning, and I'm not kidding you. I saw going to this errand. I just got to go to the post office, which is near a Home Depot, and there was a guy that had a Home Depot. I mean, clearly a homeless person had a Home Depot cart just brimming with plants. And I don't know if you Home Depot where you are, but they had the stuff outside, and you're basically on your honor to pay for it. I'm pretty sure he didn't, but anyway, I digress. It's just a little interesting story there, but. I was thinking about it on the way driving over there to run this errand. It's like Biden is ripe for the picking. If the Democrats were a real political party, you'd have people chomping at the bit to try to get him taken out. In 1968, how many people ran against Lyndon Johnson? A ton. It was Bobby Kennedy that took him out, but a bunch of people were running. That was back when it was a real political party. It's like, hey, man, you got us going in the wrong direction. I'm going to fix this. Nobody is, okay, Marianne Williamson, who doesn't really count as a Democrat, and obviously Bobby Kennedy, who does count as a Democrat, but he's a little bit of a renegade. But by and large, I'm talking about the mainstream corporate Democrats. Where's Gretchen Whitmer? Where's Gavin Newsom, right? Where are these people that are challenging him? And they're not. You know why? Because he's the head of the family. We're all getting rich here. We got a good thing. Don't rock the boat. Right? Maybe one day you'll get to be the king or the queen. But, right now you got to stay in your place in the family. That's literally what it is. And unfortunately for us, because of that, and because they've bought so many institutions, including the mechanism by which we make our decisions, the system is rigged. So that brings us to a story that happened yesterday. And I didn't want to cover it because I wanted a little bit of information to percolate out. And then also, just to me, it wasn't a big story. So this is the Utah guy they raided. They basically shot the guy. It seems like a Ruby Ridge type of situation. I mean, folks, I've seen it all before, and there's a lot of things you have to understand about what's going on here. First and foremost, this ship has sailed. And I'll tell you how I know it sailed, because I remember when they were doing, this is when Trump was president now, okay? Trump is president now. I'm going to repeat it one more time. The commander-in-chief, the head of the executive branch, supposedly, was Donald J. Trump. They decided to go after Roger Stone. How did they do it? They did a morning raid, right? They had helicopters. They had about 50, 60, and Roger Stone apparently lives on someplace by a river. He's, I don't know how old he is. He looks like he's in his 70s. His wife's also in his 70s. As far as I know, they're not gun owners. Anyway, they live out there. You got two elderly people, and they bring out like 50 guns blazing, M16s, the whole bit. I mean, full force. Why in the world would you do that? Why in the world would you do it? And I remember when that happened, I just thought to myself, this is to make a point. And there's 2 points to be made. The first point is, we're the government. We have all this force. Don't F with us. Do whatever we say. This whole idea, government, other people, by the people, for the people, you think you're a sovereign? Please, let me show you what we got. You best do what we say. And just so you know you say, well, that was a one-off, and that's a famous person, and they do that to the famous people because, they want the famous people to get the idea, right? So every once in a while, you got to prosecute Wesley Snipes for tax fraud. And there is some of that, right? There is go after, get somebody famous, and sends a message to everybody else. It's true to a point. But I'll tell you a personal story. This has been going on. The guy hadn't been sentenced yet, and he's got an appeal up in the 11th Circuit. But a friend of mine I play a lot of golf with, we called him Al-Qaeda Catholic. He's got 9 kids. I mean, he believes in all this stuff. He starts telling me a story about a friend. I forget, he was Iraqi dinar or something. I think he was selling the old Iraqi currency. So the currency bottoms out, and there's a bunch of it. I'm sure the old Vietnam currency, the old Confederacy currency, it's worthless. I mean, you can have, quote-unquote, millions of whatever it is, millions of dinar, and it's not even worth a penny. But people will buy it on the thought that one day Iraq may say, you know what, we're going to recognize part of that currency. It's going to have a value of 10 cents. Well, guess what? If you bought a million dinar for a penny, right, and now they're going to recognize 10% of its value, you just got $100,000 for a penny. And you do the math as you wish, and you can understand. So he starts making a lot of money, and I'm talking tens of millions of dollars. Eventually, the government comes after him. And my friend is telling me, this guy's getting railroaded. I went to church with him. He would never do this. I mean, he's above board. He had lawyers. He cried out loud. He had one of the biggest firms in town. He was trying to be completely legit. And they're claiming this is does this sound familiar what I'm about to tell you? A RICO enterprise. RICO enterprise. Who else is going to maybe? Trump and Fannie Willis, RICO enterprise. Anyway, I digress. And he kept telling me the story, and I kept thinking to myself, you know what, buddy? I mean, your friend, I get it, he's a high school, but somewhere they're going to have some evidence where he tried to manipulate this currency. Because they basically were saying that he got to people to buy the dinar, and then he was bribing officials in Iraq to make certain decisions, right? Well, the guy was like, no, that's just not what happened. I said, trust me, he's not telling you because he don't want to tell you, but they got some evidence. And he could so convince me that I literally walked my butt up to the Northern District, which is where it was, and sat in that courtroom for the openings and the first few witnesses, and I was shocked. They had nothing. Nothing. Not a check, not even an allegation. They had less than what we've learned about Joe Biden. Not even, they had nothing. All they had was, we don't like that you're doing this. Here's a RICO statute that, basically, folks, maybe one day next week or thereafter, we'll do a RICO case, and I'll show you. I think I've done it before, but I'll do it again to show you how broad it is. It's just written so broadly that I could make anything if I wanted a RICO charge. And that's part of what's going on with Jack Smith. You go look at his indictment. He literally can make anything an indictment. I've given this example before. It's the best one I can give you. He literally, if you go and you plead not guilty to a charge, obstruction, he's obstructing this proceeding, which is absurd. But that's what leftism is. Anyway, so I'll tell you this. When they went to arrest this Catholic guy, do you think maybe they just brought an FBI agent? And understand, he's communicating. This is the old days. I've got one of the biggest firms in town. You just call me. We'll surrender. We'll do the mugshot. We'll do the fingerprints. Just tell me when to be there. Monday morning, August 14th at 9 a.m., we'll be there with bells on. No problem. Right? And they're communicating. Da-da-da-da-da. He literally gets up one morning, 6 a.m., guns in his face. About 10 FBI agents show up. His little kids are there. I mean, when my buddy told me the story, that was the first time I thought, well, that's kind of odd. Really? And then again, this is just like 3 or 4 years ago. And I was like, well, maybe they thought he was, your brain, that's why they're taking advantage of your brain. Because your brain immediately goes, well, they must have had some valid reason for this. And da-da-da. No, they don't. It's just thug behavior. And they have the power. And pretty soon, think about all the agents. This is the first or second raid they've done. Right? They don't know anything but this. So the next time they go up to get another person, well, yeah, of course we come with 20 people, right? And of course we knock on the door and put a gun in the face of a child. That's what we do. It's what we've always done, right? They don't know the idea of trying to cooperate. So one of the things that's going on is basically to send a message of how big and tough and powerful you are. But the other thing, and this is where, again, I talk a lot about, that we interpret the news through the lens of the law. The Constitution is history. And this is where you need to know a little law. So when you start to take constitutional law, one of the principles, big principles, going throughout constitutional law is this. The home is the last bastion you have. The government has the least power against you in your home. So think about COVID, right? In COVID, could they tell you to wear a mask? I don't think so, but it's arguable when you're out in public, right? Because out there you have but could they tell you to wear a mask in your home? Of course not. Did they ever try when they were passing all these smoking bans? Did they ever once try to say you can't smoke in your home? Of course not. They can't do that. And that's a recognized constitutional principle throughout life. And throughout our history, it's in our canons and our codes. Any lawyer will tell you that. That's part of what's going on here. You think you're going to have an army in your home? Oh, yeah. No, you won't. No. No, that won't be happening, right? We'll just raid your house, and you have to have a search warrant. Yeah, we got a search warrant. And I'm going to read. So one of the things I wanted to anyway, I wanted to give you that idea. That's a lot of that's going on. Is this the constant drip erosion of the Constitution? So here's a photo of him. Looks like in a garage or something where he's got a lot of ammo and he's got some sort of I can't tell. It doesn't look like a lever action. Anyway, some sort of scoped rifle. Anyway, this is the picture that's going on around him. Apparently, he was much more obese, so this is not a recent picture. But this is the picture that's going around. Is that he obviously was armed and he had this thing. And so here's a typical leftist here, Ed Crassington, Stein, or whatever. I follow him because he's one of these people that tries to pretend like he's moderate, but he's a complete leftist. But let's get an idea of the way they think about these things. Okay, so update on the FBI shooting of Craig Robertson, who made numerous death threats against Joe Biden, Alvin Bragg, Kamala Harris, the FBI, and others. Okay, so this happened the day before yesterday, and Joe Biden was strolling by his house. No, well, he wasn't even in Utah, remotely in Utah. Was Kamala there? Was Alvin Bragg there? I don't think so. So I'm not really sure how there was a threat, but whatever. Dozens of FBI agents with tactical gear showed up at Roberts' home between 6 and 6:30 a.m. Now, I wonder why they're showing up at 6:30 a.m. I had some roof work done a couple days ago, and they showed up at 6:30 p.m. But they made it clear to me, because I speak a little Espaniola, they made it clear to me that they wanted to beat the heat. Okay, that makes sense. So, I'll get up early. But why? Well, you're the FBI. You got to do a raid early in the morning. That's meant to catch you off guard and to intimidate you. They lined up in front of Robertson's door and, using a megaphone, ordered him to exit with his hands up. Anyway, the police then attempted to break his door down, which was extremely heavy. They couldn't break it open, so they used a breaching vehicle to break a window. That's when neighbors heard the first shots. One neighbor told the Deseret News, whatever, after hearing initial shots, "I heard them yell, 'Shots fired, shots fired, he has a gun,' and then a whole bunch more shots. They were all shooting at the same time and at the same point. I was in get my kid mode." I know there are a lot of people who somehow are trying to blame this on the FBI and trying to make Robertson look like an innocent victim here. To me, that certainly doesn't seem to be the case. Okay, point is, I'm going to get to this in a minute, but this is exactly how we lost our news, okay? Here's a story that doesn't even hold together remotely reasonably close to anything that can hold up to objective analysis. But if your analysis can be subjective, right, it certainly doesn't seem the case to me. Well, let's back up here, Ed. Let's go back a little bit. One neighbor told me after hearing initial gunshots, "I heard them yell, 'Shots fired, he has a gun.'" Well, to me, did he shoot at all in that, or did one of them shoot him, and then they shot more, and then once shots were fired, a bunch of people shot? He has a gun. Was he shooting the gun? Was he holding the gun? Do you see a gun? Or you see how if we do an objective analysis, I have no idea what's going on, right? Let's go back. So they showed up with a megaphone, 6:30 a.m. They ordered him with his hands up. Then they started to knock his door down. Why? Okay, why would you do that? Okay, I've ordered you, exit, you need to exit like right now. Okay, I've given you the 15 seconds you have to exit, now I'm coming in. Do I think maybe if I come into your home and you're armed and you didn't want to exit that maybe I've escalated, and I've escalated quickly? I've got a real problem with that. Okay, I mean, I could sit here and talk about, and we could have a debate if we were talking about days, we were talking about weeks, if he had somebody in there. But folks, this is what all this is designed to do. They show up at your home, right, first thing in the morning, heavily armed with all this stuff, and if you don't do exactly what they say when they say it, we have permission to come in, and if you try to defend yourself, we have permission to execute you. Now, folks, I can tell you this would have horrified every American about 15 years ago. Why did you go in? Why didn't you wait him out? Why didn't you try to starve him out? Where's the negotiator? I saw that movie, right, with Kevin Spacey and Samuel L. Jackson, and they negotiated people out for a living. Where'd that guy? Where did he come from, right? I mean, did you shoot him? Did he shoot you first, right? Nobody cares. Boom, move on. Here's a picture of him holding on. Oh, he had firearms? Oh, my God, shoot him. Kill him right now. Anyway, I was going to play Scott Adams from yesterday, but I'll just tell you about it. Literally, at the end of his podcast yesterday, said somebody shot him because if we can get, by the way, if you're listening to us on YouTube, please subscribe, please like it, same thing with Rumble, etc. When we get to 500 on that, we can have where you can actually text me during the broadcast and I can answer questions. So somebody said, "What do you think of this guy?" And I kid you not, he was like, "Look, you're not going to like my answer, but I have to be consistent. If you have a gun and you resist, I don't care what happens to you." Now, again, if I explained to him what I just explained to you, I'm 100% positive he would go, "Yeah, you make a lot of really good points." Right? Of course I do, because I know what's going on here. It's not hard to see. In other words, if I have this Constitution and the rule of law, and man, it really is a pain in the butt. Oh, so now you're not going to open your door. Now I've got a warrant, but technically, do I really have a right to come in even though I have a warrant? How much force can I use? When can I use it? Oh, you're going to get a lawyer. Now you want you to negotiate. Oh, your life means something. Geez, this is a real pain in the butt. Can we just knock the door down and shoot you? I don't want to have to deal with your lawyer and beyond a reasonable doubt and crimes and all this other stuff, right? That's an easier way to do it, and that's what they want. That's the system they want. They don't want the other system. Anyway, and so Scott thinks it's consistent. Well, that's not anywhere remotely like somebody who's being arrested out there. And again, the home is key here. I can't stress this enough. They want you to get used to the idea, hey, you're out, and like I'm going to go later to the gym, and I'm going to go over to Ansley, where my gym is, and I go in there, and somebody sticks me up, and the cops happen to get there at the time, and the guy says, hey, turns the weapon away from me, hopefully he doesn't shoot me, and starts to shoot at the cops, and the cops shoot him, right? They want you to think this is what happened there, right? And that's not what happened. And the big clue you should have had from the very beginning was, why were they going to his home? And why did it take them a mere, 20 minutes to execute this person? That seems odd in your home, and that's what it's all about. Anyway, folks, we covered this a couple days ago, and I said that I think Massachusetts had declared an emergency, and I said, look, this is where they're finally starting to realize there's a problem. This is the only way we can get some pushback is if they realize it, and I do mean that. Right now, we may get to a point where we can have a two-party debate anymore, but we don't have two parties in this country. We have one party. We have a uniparty. It's the Democrat Party. Now, some Republicans are also in that uniparty, but basically the Democrats run everything. So until the Democrats decide to do something, you ain't getting nothing done. I mean, seriously. I mean, nothing at the federal level, certainly. And so I thought, well, this is the Democrats deciding they want to do something, and it's going to take, my point was, now you're going to start to see the tide turn, and we might get some progress in 10, 20 years. Well, now I'm not so sure about that, because I listened to Mayor Adams. I don't know where he is here. It looks like he's on CBS or something in the morning. They got some morning show. Anyway, take a listen to Mayor Adams talk about the immigration problem. Take a listen.
Well, think about what happened in the last few months. We have created a funnel. All of the bordering states have now took the funnel right to New York City. New York City is the economic engine of this entire state and country. If you decimate this city, you're going to decimate the foundation of what's happening. Look at Chicago, Los Angeles.
Okay, so now I'm thinking not so much because, wait a minute, what? The border states? Well, no, that's just the way they got it. It's not the border states' fault that they happen to be on the border. See, the reason they're border states is because they're on the border, Eric. Let me help you out here. When you're on a border, that means there's another state or another country, right, on the other side of you. That's what a border is. So people come in through the border. They don't funnel anything. So it's complete idiocy, right? But whatever. And who made them sanctuary cities? Who said, come, please come, right? Joe Biden and the Democrats. So I'm not following all this nonsense, but I'm sensing that you're going to make something political that really shouldn't be political, and I'm sensing that where we might be getting progress, we're not. But then he lets the cat out of the bag.
And now you're hearing the governor of Massachusetts. And so when people say, well, we gave them $100 million, $12 billion bill.
Yeah. you gave me $100 million for $1 billion bill? Huh. So now I'm like, oh, wait a minute. Well, what? Well, what? We gave you $100 million for what? You're a sanctuary city, and as far as I know, you don't get. And so now we see. I wonder how much the big guy got. And folks, look, this is what we now see. And now that we see the problem, we might be able to fix it, but no one is even starting to fix it, and fixing it is going to take decades. All this aid, we'll give you this money. And by the way, what I tell you about round figures, they're almost always fraudulent, right? Or manufactured. $100 billion for $1 billion problem. He just throws these numbers out. I mean, do you have any idea how much money we've stolen from future generations that they're going to have to work their butts off to earn? But set that aside. That's what all this is. Just give me some money. Print me some money because I can't print it. I'm New York. New York can't print money. Feds, you can print it and send it to me. It's an extortion racket. So what apparently may have happened is not what I thought yesterday. And listen, when I'm wrong, I'll be the first one to admit I'm wrong, right? I was wrong about that. It appears they're not trying to do this at all. It appears to be more like New York got $100 billion. Well, I wonder how much Massachusetts can get. We declare ourselves a little emergency there. So anyway, it may just be a grift. I don't know. We'll see. All right. So folks, this popped up in my Twitter feed. I started mentioning it. Lee Fang's opinion, not mine, but he's absolutely right. Universities are absolutely out of control. They get government-backed student loans and tax breaks. Won't stop spending on unnecessary stadiums, export gaming lounges, luxury dorm rooms, armies of administrators, monuments to the waste that drive up costs and tuition. Folks, the education has been revealed to be a racket for decades now. I mean, it's obvious what's going on. I mean, we're just pouring money into it. And why is chemistry harder to teach now than it was when I took it all those years ago? It isn't. So where's the money going? right, to a bunch of administrators. But we need to figure this out. I mean, we need to start. And again, if we started today, you might get something done by 2033 if you're lucky. All right. So here's Daniel Uhlfelder, who ran for Attorney General of Florida, and he's basically commenting on the black district attorney that was suspended by Ron DeSantis yesterday. But anyway, so I meant a little bit of a nod to this earlier, but I brought it up because you can't make this point too often. So here's his tweet. Okay, this is literally a tweet he sent yesterday evening at 7:41 p.m. When DeSantis says he hates woke, he means blacks. Okay, so you can read his mind, and subjectively what you interpret him to be saying is what he's saying. Once you start down that road, you end up in hell. That's just where you're going. There's no way you can have any system of logic, reason, rule of law, constitution. You can't have anything but a tyranny once you start that. Oh, I know what you said, but I know what you mean. Well, then what is the point then? How are we even communicating? How are we going to have a debate if I say, well, here's what we should do. I think the people that work a little harder should be able to keep a little bit more of their money, and they should be ahead a little bit, and we'll have a safety net, but won't be a hammock, so it'll be lower than what you get in European states. Or no, I don't want to do that. I want to give all the money, all the ownership to the government, and then people, whether they work or not, they will get the same amount, right? Oh, I know what you mean by that. You mean to cut off our heads, right? Well, no, nobody's going to vote for that, but that's not what I said. Right? And I did that the right way, folks. I was not trying to extol the virtues of one over the other. Anyway, when he says he hates Soros, he means Jews. Okay, well, thanks. But again, folks, this is the kind of stuff that I see it and I'm like, well, roll your eyes, first off. But then second off, you used to didn't be able to get away with that. Right? You'd have to say, well, what evidence do you have that when he says he hates woke, he means, do you have a situation where it's just, I get to interpret whatever I want to say as it is. So one of the things I've noticed out there, and I want to make this point this week, I think I'm meant to make it all week, but you're starting to hear the Democrats use the term fascism. And I think it's because people like me and Jesse Kelly and some others started calling them fascists a while back. Now, I'm doing it because that's what they've become. Right? During Trump, they weren't quite fascist because they didn't have the power they needed to do it and they hadn't quite got there. They started it under Obama, then there was kind of a pause. And then when Biden took over, they're full-on fascist. And I am not joking about that. They are. They clearly are. They're using the culture. They're redefining the rule of law. They're literally. So that's what they are. But now they're starting to say that we're fascists. So let's examine what's fascist. Now, we did this a couple days ago in the context of the Ohio vote, right? So you either voted the way they wanted to vote or it was fascism. Now, I thought it was the absolute essence of democracy to go to the people and go, hey, people, we would like to raise the threshold for a constitutional amendment in Ohio from 50 to 60. And we would like you to vote on said policy. Would you like to go from 50 to 60? We're going to let you vote on it. And it's going to be a democratic vote and the majority will win. Okay? And you asking them to do that is fascism. Really? Or deciding you as a people want to go to a 60% threshold is fascism. Huh. Well, if that's fascism, then the Constitution, which provides you have to have 3/4 of the House and the Senate to get an amendment, well, that's fascism. If when you propose an amendment, you have to get 3/4 of the state to adopt it, that's fascist. I could go on. Okay, take them at their words. So here's Dan Goldman, again, newly minted congressperson. I say this all the time. This is what they want. This is what they're feeding. It's like, people don't like sports analogies, but it's the best one I can give you. And I was watching because the Dallas Cowboys started their training camp a couple days ago, and I've been reading some of the stuff. There's not much news anymore. There's not news anywhere. I mean, I would spend, 10, 50, 30 minutes or so reading the quote-unquote Cowboys news. Now I can't because it's all opinion. It's all narrative. I'm like, I don't want to hear about Dak Prescott's contract. It's not up for 3 years. Why are you even talking? Because I got nothing. Because I can. Because they don't have to deal with facts. They can deal with, well, here's something to distract you. Will you be distracted and click on this for a few minutes? Yeah, well, I'm not. You're boring the heck out of me. But anyway, so one of the things that the Cowboys used to do, right, was they would build this tremendous offensive line, and the idea was if you have a really good offensive line, then you can sustain a quarterback that's not as good, or a running back that's not as good, or a receiver that's not as good. And Stephen Jones, who I'm a huge fan of, he's the assistant general manager of the Dallas Cowboys because his father won't step down, but he's basically running the show now. Anyway, that was his philosophy, right? And part and parcel of his philosophy was it's fundamental football. Number two, these people, you get them and they last longer, right? Linemen can have 10, 15, 12 year careers. Quarterbacks, sort of. Running backs, 4 or 5 tops. Receivers, not as much. So, and they cost less. I mean, you're paying a fortune for these quarterbacks and receivers and running backs, not as much for linemen. So anyway, but the point is that has all gone away, and they're now older, right? And for whatever reason, Dallas has not been reinvesting in these linemen. That's fine. They're going a different route. I guess they're going to go to the route where they want receivers and running backs and quarterbacks. Whatever, that's fine. Do whatever you want to do. I'm not a fan, but I'm still going to follow them because I'm invested. And I say all that to say this. But you make a decision on what you want to do. Where do you want to take your football team? Do you want to invest in linemen and have a good line? Would you rather say, I'll have lesser line? Of course, the Democrat Party is choosing right before your eyes. We want Adam Schiff's. Right? We want Jamie Raskins. We want AOC. Bombastic, hyperbolic people that scream and yell. The only thing they do is scream at their political opponents, attack their political opponents. That's all they do. 24/7, 365. They don't do any governance at all. That's what they want. The types of people who are circumspect and, hey, I'm not a Republican. I'm a New Deal Democrat. I believe in Social Security and I believe in a stronger safety net. And Those people, they're being pushed out. Anyway, so here we go right here, Dan Goldman. When a governor removes other duly elected officials, not because they violated the law, but simply because he disagrees with how they're doing their job, we no longer have a representative democracy. Now, I don't know what Goldman's talking about because he's assuming he can read DeSantis' mind. DeSantis, we read it yesterday, he used a law, usually can't do this. In fact, I think Florida may be the only state in the union can do it. It's the first time I've ever heard of it, but fine, whatever. So they've written into the law that he can suspend DAs. I think he can also suspend sheriffs, although that's a lot more common in other states. But if he does that, right, because they violated the law said dereliction of duty, right? I mean, the law said incompetence. If you're not prosecuting people, anyway, so that is fascism pure and simple. How is it fascism to implement the law that was democratically passed? So I urge my Republican colleagues to act. Translation, fascism is something I don't like. And that's as simple as that. That's how Democrat thinking works, folks. In fact, I haven't done this in a while and since I rebooted it. So I'll tell you this example. You hear a lot of times, but they don't do it as much anymore, but they used to do a lot. So-and-so is Hitler. So-and-so is Hitler. You can't do that. I mean, you do any comparison to, they're Hitler. Did they take over 2/3 of Europe? Right? Did they systematically try to exterminate Russians and Jews? Right? Well, that's not Hitler then. What are you talking about? I mean, there's no similarity at all. But let me do it if you do it emotionally. How do you feel about Hitler? Oh, I don't like Hitler. He makes me feel bad. How do you feel about DeSantis? Similarly, I do not like him. Makes me feel bad. Ergo, they're the same. Anyway, folks, here's just something that pops up in my feed, but I thought it was interesting from the libs of TikTok. Anyway, we'll just let this person on TikTok explain to you. So, folks, and my brain just can't do it. I'm not trying to be funny when I do this stuff. I can't understand the he's and the she's and the trans, and I just get mixed up. But let's see if he can explain it to you.
Some straight men are attracted to trans women who haven't had bottom surgery. This is very disconcerting and confusing to women when they find this out because they think, well, if she hasn't had bottom surgery, then, and you want to play with that part of her, then you can't be 100% straight. But that doesn't make sense because you have to remember that these are still women. Trans women are women. They are female.
I mean, how far do you have to go with this stuff, right? But then you have to remember Voltaire, I think it was said, if you can get people to believe absurdities, you can get them to commit atrocities, right? So when you that's why every time you see this stuff that doesn't make any sense and it's just all nonsense and it's all designed to be noise, and you just shake your head, and a lot of people, a lot of shows I listen to, I'm sure you listen to them too, they mock it and laugh at it and ha ha ha. Don't fall for that. That is absolutely one more drip in that bucket that's going to fill up. And remember, always remember Andy Dufresne, right? All we need is time and pressure. That's all we needed to create the Grand Canyon. That may be a lot of time and just a little pressure, but you give us enough time, idiocy, and over time it favors them. All right, so here we go. A story here from NBC News, which is well known to be propaganda at this point. Interviews with voters across the U.S. reveal fears that former President Trump's legal woes could sink the GOP in 2024. Now, folks, normally when you read that headline, you think, yeah, that's why the Democrats are interfering with the election and rigging the laws in a fascist manner to have Stalinist show trials to go after people. Okay, I get it. Quote, if we had a different candidate other than Trump, I think the Republicans might do better in the general. I've already explained this to you folks. You got two problems. First problem is all this stuff by them is manufactured about Trump. And those of you who think Those of you who think, Ben Shapiro, I'm talking about you. Eric Erickson, I'm talking about you. I still listen to you, and every time you say this, I shake my head, right? Well, just get rid of Trump. I just think we had a better candidate down the line. Folks, it doesn't matter who it is. Whoever steps up, be it DeSantis, be it Rick Scott, be it Vivek, be it Nikki Haley, there will be Hitler within days. The only advantage of Trump is he's already been branded. With the next person, it's going to take him a few days or a few weeks to brand him. But branded they will be, and quickly. So I'm sorry, folks, but if you think that, you're just barking up the wrong tree. You're wrong. And I'm sorry to say that so definitively, but I am 99.9% convinced that that is absolutely correct analysis, right? Anyway, and that's just because they control the culture, this, that, and the other. The other problem you have, and that is setting aside. Let us assume they are right with that. Let's assume that, no, we could get rid of the baggage. The problem is your fundamental candidates, your Mike Pence's, your Ron DeSantis's, your other folks, cannot get certain people to come out. The Reagan Democrats, the lost white voters, whatever you want to call them, all these people, these populists, they won't come out. They'll come out for Reagan, they'll come out for Perot, they'll come out for Trump. Okay? They ain't coming out for the other people. So the problem is Trump loses you 2%. He probably gains you 4% from those other people. You do the math. All right, folks, here's another one. This is from Brian Krasenstein, who's apparently the brother of Ed Krasenstein. How many does he have? Does he have 1 million followers? Not quite. He's only got 761. His brother's got about. And this is a lot of the cabal that's going out there. These people that have money, and I don't know how they get all these followers, and then they get, anyway, they get set up there to spread this propaganda. So anyway, he's talking about the update of today. Trump will find out if he's going to be gagged. Now, I can tell you right now, folks, and I'm just predicting. I predict he will be gagged. I predict the judge will do whatever the state wants. And the state is going to say, don't let him talk about the case. Now, they're going to tell you, well, he just can't reveal evidence and intimidate witnesses. That's all this protective order is about. It's garbage. It's laughable. I can't believe the Supreme Court would not invite and take this upon the immediate moment the petition for certiorari hits their desk. They should take it and go, this is prior restraint. You can't do this. The whole protective order is for the protection of the defendant, not the state. This is just complete idiocy. It's not even close. But she's going to do it. She's going to do it. And again, the other problem is, it's laughable. We covered it a couple days ago. Jack Smith, I don't want this case tried in the media. Then why are you leaking every day? It's obvious to a child. What you want is you be able to control, you leak, and then he can't say a word. That's what you want, obviously. And since we're not going to be able to see it, anyway, so that we'll see what Chutkan does. But again, the good news for us is I think the more they go down this path, the more they're revealed. The more people pay attention, the more they're like, wow, this is really out of control. So, folks, I'm going to finish this last story of the day, and you're already all caught up with the news, but I want to tell you something. One other problem with this theory that you hear out there, well, Trump's got a lot of baggage. Get rid of him, get us a good candidate. Let me tell you, here's one of their quote-unquote good candidates, Mike Pence. Listen to Mike Pence out on the trail just a couple days ago.
Way back. Let me see if I can hear you.
How has life treated you since Tucker Carlson ruined your career?
I had a very sporty debate with that former talk show host from Fox. And I will tell you, when some people put out a video from that cut off the back half of my answer, I simply tweeted the whole 3 minutes and said, we used to call that fake news.
All right, so he's talking about the video that went that said he didn't care about it. That's not my problem. Folks, you can't be a good candidate if you don't understand your base. And let me tell you something you don't do. All right, it's just simple. You don't attack Trump unnecessarily. You don't attack that former news host from Fox. That's just, folks, if this is what they got, we're in trouble. But it gets worse. Here's a recent ad he put out. We started the show with it. And I remember he was talking about, he remembers $2 gas, and he's got the Pence energy plan. Let's take a listen.
Yes, I do.
He does.
And then Joe Biden became president of the United States and launched his war on energy. Since that time, gasoline prices are up 60%. Electricity prices are up 25%.
What's that beeping noise?
War on energy.
Why do we keep hearing this beeping noise? Where's that beeping noise coming from?
Family farms.
Here's where the beeping noise is coming from in that ad, folks. And here's why his hand is not pulling the nozzle up. So you got to pull the nozzle to get the gas to go in it. You know why I know that? Because I've been pumping gas for 50 years. That's how it works. It's how it's always worked, right? And that beeping noise is the gasoline pump telling you, you got to tell me which grade of gas. You know why I know that? Because I have been dealing with the grade issue for about 40 years. That didn't come along. It used to be you only pretty much had one grade. Folks, you had diesel, you had gas, that was it. Anyway, folks, that's a good candidate? Please. I mean, anyway, you're all caught up with all the news of the day. If you enjoyed this podcast, hope you tune back in tomorrow and have a good weekend.